In 1975, a 24-year-old engineer walked into his boss's office with a device the size of a toaster. It weighed 3.6 kilograms. It took 23 seconds to save a single image. The resolution was laughably bad, but it was the first digital camera ever built.
Silicon devices, and so I was interested in how light affected silicon, so I jumped at the chance to do work with this new.
His boss looked at it, handed it back, and said, "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." That engineer's name was Steve Sasson. His employer was Kodak. And that single decision to bury their own invention cost the company everything. To understand how badly Kodak failed, you first need to understand how dominant they were. At their peak in the 1970s, Kodak controlled 90% of the US film market and 85% of all camera sales in America. The company employed over 140,000 people worldwide. Their headquarters in Rochester, New York, was basically a city within a city, with its own hospital, sports facilities, and golf courses. The phrase Kodak moment wasn't just a marketing slogan, it became part of the English language, a shorthand for memories worth keeping. Kodak didn't just sell film. They sold the idea that ordinary moments deserved to be preserved forever, and it worked. For decades, it worked brilliantly. By 1996, Kodak was worth $28 billion and listed as one of the 5 most valuable brands in the world, alongside Coca-Cola, Disney, McDonald's, and IBM. But something had been quietly building inside the company for over 20 years. Something their own engineers had created, something their leadership chose to ignore. In 1973, Kodak engineer Steve Sasson was given a vague assignment: figure out if a new component called a charge-coupled device could do anything useful. 2 years later, he had his answer. The CCD, combined with a modified Super 8 camera and a digital cassette, could capture and store an image electronically. No film required. When Sasson demonstrated the prototype to Kodak's management in 1976, their reaction wasn't excitement. It was fear. And the fear was rational, at least from a short-term perspective. Kodak's entire business model was built in what insiders called the razor and blades model. Cameras were the razor, sold cheaply, sometimes at a loss. Film was the blades, sold repeatedly, forever, at enormous margins. Film wasn't just a product, it was a subscription. Every birthday, every holiday, every vacation, people came back to buy more. Digital photography didn't just threaten one product, it threatened the entire machine. So Kodak did something that seems insane in hindsight, but made complete sense to a corporation protecting a $10 billion per year cash cow. They classified the digital camera research, told Sasson not to talk about it externally, and continued betting everything on film. What's extraordinary is that Sasson himself predicted what was coming. In internal memos from the late 1970s, he estimated that digital cameras could reach consumer quality by the mid-1990s. He was right, almost to the year. Kodak just chose not to listen. Through the 1980s and early 90s, Kodak wasn't completely blind. They made half-hearted moves into digital, acquiring companies, building prototypes, even releasing a digital camera in 1991. But every digital initiative was treated as a threat to be managed, not an opportunity to be seized. When Kodak's digital cameras started selling, their own sales force was incentivized to push film instead. Digital was cannibalizing the cash cow, and no one inside the company was willing to let that happen. Then, 1996 arrived, the year Kodak hit its absolute peak. 140,000 employees, $28 billion market cap. Was also the year digital camera sales began their exponential rise. The timing is almost poetic. Between 1996 and 2003, Kodak's core film business collapsed faster than almost any product in corporate history. Film sales dropped by over 70% in less than a decade. The company tried everything: layoffs, restructuring, a desperate pivot to digital. They poured billions into a transition they had refused to lead when they had the chance. By 2004, Kodak had laid off 55,000 people. By 2011, the stock had fallen 95% from its peak. On January 19, 2012, 36 years after Steve Sasson first demonstrated his digital camera prototype, Kodak filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company that invented digital photography went bankrupt because of digital photography. Business schools will teach the Kodak story for the next 100 years, and they'll mostly frame it as a failure of vision, a company that couldn't see the future coming. But that's not quite right. Kodak saw the future perfectly. Steve Sasson showed it to them in 1975. The research teams documented exactly how the transition would unfold. The real failure wasn't vision, it was incentives. Every single person at Kodak who had the power to act, executives, board members, sales managers, was financially rewarded for protecting the existing business. Digital photography didn't just threaten the company, it threatened their bonuses, their departments, their careers. This is what Harvard professor Clayton Christensen later called the innovator's dilemma. The better a company is at serving its current customers, the harder it becomes to pivot when those customers' needs change. Kodak wasn't stupid. They were trapped by their own success, by their own incentive structures, by the rational, logical decision to protect $10 billion in annual revenue, rather than bet on a technology that might take 20 years to mature. Those patents were eventually sold in bankruptcy proceedings to a consortium of tech companies. Kodak invented the future, then sold it for parts. If this story tells us anything, it's that the biggest risk in business isn't missing a new technology. It's understanding exactly where the world is going and choosing not to follow it because the present is too comfortable. If you want to go deeper on the business decisions behind the world's biggest corporate failures and comebacks, subscribe. There's a lot more coming. And if you want to understand the strategic frameworks behind stories like this one, I've linked a book in the description called The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. It's the single best book ever written on why successful companies fail. The link is in the description below. By the way, even after the final collapse of Kodak, Steve Sasson continued to work as an engineer. In 2009, 3 years before Kodak went bankrupt, Barack Obama awarded him the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. The man who built the future was finally recognized, just not by the company that employed him for 27 years. Kodak's headquarters in Rochester still stands. Parts of it are now a co-working space, rented out to tech startups. The same building where executives once buried the digital camera now hosts the kind of people who would have used it.